Hi, I'm Justin Chon. I'm the director of Blue Bayou. First of all, I'd like to thank the co-hosts of this screening, Louis Song, Mike Moon, Jean Kim, and Sonia Chin.
I'm so happy to speak to you, Justin. I know you're super busy, and I'm wondering how you're feeling on opening weekend since it's kind of in the shadows of Shang-Chi, but
Hmm.
we're getting the word out. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel great. We're going to live in a world soon that it's not going to matter how many Asian American films we have coming out, like, one after another. It's going to become so normalized that we're not going to have to feel like we're cannibalizing on each other. We're not. There's more than enough to go around. People people are capable of watching more than one film at a time. Like they can. Shang-Chi came out like a week or two ago, and it's okay. More importantly, I'm very excited to share this film and hopefully have it do some good in the world.
Can you explain to the audience about how important it is to come out on films like this for opening weekend?
The people who are marketing this film and financing the sort of distribution of the film is a studio. And they're not exactly run by Asian Americans or minorities for that matter. So when they see the opening weekend numbers, it's very important and it's a good indicator how the film is going to perform in the coming weeks. The first weekend, if it does really well, they decide, oh, you know what, this feels like it could be a hit. Then they put in more money for marketing, more money for, to expand to more theaters. So it's a cascading event, cascading effect. So that is why it's important.
Right. And we're trying to do our best here in San Diego to be part of that larger picture for opening weekend. Let's talk about the story. It's so rare to see in narrative form any kind of adoptee experience, especially Korean American adoptee. Tell us why this was so important for you to tell and why Louisiana? Why did you set it in Louisiana?
Us as Koreans, we know that the idea of international adoption began in Korea. The whole concept of it, and then it spread to other countries. So the adoptee experience is something that is very much a part of our narrative as Korean Americans, as also as Asian Americans. So my one of my goals is to bring empathy to our community. So part of that is representing all of our voices and representing that way, and the adoptee experience is very much a part of our experience in this country. These adoptees that are being brought here, in the 70s and 80s, were brought as children by U.S. citizens, and um, the government acknowledged these adoptions and they were legal, and children were, being brought overseas, and money was exchanged, and they're finding out 20, 30 years later that because of loopholes in paperwork, that they were never American citizens. I just think that's shocking and appalling and unacceptable. It's their responsibility to take care of, and no amount of loopholes in paperwork should allow them to be deported. Um, so it's the reason I'm making this movie. I want to shed a spotlight on this issue, and how legislation works. The more attention it gets, the more urgent it becomes to address it. And I just think that nobody knows this is even happening. Some of us do, but in our communities. But if you ask any random person on the street, do you know that adoptees that were brought here from other countries by U.S. citizens are being deported? 95% will tell you no. More than 95, 98, 99. It's the reason I'm telling this film. Because my heart bleeds for them. The reason I said New Orleans is our main character Antonio is resilient, just like the city is. That city has been through so many natural disasters, and yet they have this beautiful spirit and are able to carry on. And I feel like Antonio holds that same sort of spirit. Also, one of the big agendas that I had for this film is to get two Asian American ethnicities into one film. Our stories are relegated to only be allowed to have one ethnicity, Asian ethnicity per film. Uh, we never get to see two Asian ethnicities, and I don't understand why. We never get to see us interact with one another on screen. so I wanted to change that with this film, and have the Vietnamese community kind of inform and maybe be, an adjacent Asian culture that Antonio could maybe learn from, or have cause some introspective moments for him. And as we all know, New Orleans has a huge enclave of Vietnamese Americans that were relocated after the Vietnam War. Um, and also New Orleans is like no other place, in the country. It's diverse in a different way that Los Angeles or New York is. It's it's almost like another country.
Did you ever live there? Because I'm wondering how you worked on the Southern accent and also, developing the story about the Korean American adoptee experience. Did you have to do a lot of interviews with people? Well, how did you prepare for the role?
I've never lived there. I've spent quite a bit of time there, though. I have a lot of friends from there.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Preparing for the role, um, I had 5 adoptee consultants,
Mm,
that were kind of like, made sure that they read every version of every draft of the script and gave input. So I made sure that that input ended up in the movie. For example, when an adoptee has a child, it's one of the biggest moments in their life because finally they are blood related to somebody.
right.
It's a very emotional moment for most adoptees. So that's in the film, and there's a lot of those kind of details that I made sure were included. Yeah, and I had one particular woman that I talked to almost every day. It was like speed dial, and running things by her, making sure things felt authentic. But all that to say is I'm not adopted, and I would never know what that feels like. So I just hope that of course, some adoptees will not feel like this is authentic to their experience, and there's no way I can be all encompassing for every adoptee's experience. This is just this version of the slice of the pie of the experience. So I hope I've done at least an iota of justice and gave a little bit of authenticity to to their experience and story.
Well, the adoptee experience is just so vast. We
Yeah,
adopted a son from Korea in
yeah,
2006. So his experience being adopted into a Korean family is totally, completely different than those many people in the 80s and 90s and before that. Can we talk a little bit about how you began and how you ended the film with that sweet Korean lullaby? I swear when I heard the voice and she was singing, "Cha-jang, cha-jang," I automatically started getting a lump in my throat because
yeah.
it brought back so much memories of that song by my parents, by my grandma. So I'm curious why you decided to sandwich the film with that particular lullaby.
Well, I call it that blood memory. It's the memory we have in our blood.
Mm,
You cannot deny that. But what's powerful about film is when it's felt, when you can feel it like that, it crosses all boundaries. So when an American person sees it, it might feel foreign at first, but then they do feel the intention of what that song is designed for, which is put a child to sleep.
mm,
So they get it, whether or not they understand it. And film is an emotional medium. It's best utilized as a felt medium. So that's at the end of it, it's like this child that she's trying to put to sleep in the bayou, or probably some lake in Korea, and the decision that she made to give the son up for adoption, not drowning the baby, that just carries on through the film.
mm,
And it also rings in a few subliminal areas throughout the film. It's in there, you just maybe don't hear it like very distinctly. But at the end of the film, these are our children that we've given up, that have come to this country and now brought back to the country that they.
mm,
And how do you feel about it?
mhm.
What does that make you feel? And there's irony in it, and you know that's the reason.
That idea of choice too, like, it just struck me so hard being a mother of an adoptee, the idea of choice and how you define family and what makes you American. And you really accentuated, you carried the idea of choice all the way to the very end when your stepdaughter turns around and calls you daddy, at the airport. was that idea of choice, was that something from you, or was that something that was brought about through the Korean adoptee consultants?
No, that was for me.
Mhm.
I think that a lot of the people I find closest in my life have been chosen people.
Mm,
And sometimes they're closer than my own family. And I think there's a power of choice for all of it. You just even being an American, like who's more American? The person who was born here or the person who chose to come here and choose this as their country? It's a power, like choice is so powerful, and especially with who we call our family, it's such an intimate thing that is Jesse not his daughter? I don't know. You've watched the film and I'm sure you feel their connection. So who's to say that they're not? And they get to decide, and that's what Antonio is trying to tell Jesse in the beginning, because Antonio is forced to choose. He's chosen all of everybody that's he considers family is people he's chosen, and then he's made the choice to choose Jesse,
mm.
and I think that's powerful.
It is powerful. And, you as a father of a child around that age, your daughter is now what, 5, 4 or 5?
She's gonna turn 4 she's gonna turn 4 in December. She's
Okay.
crazy.
So, well, you did such a great job in Gook with your relationship with the young girl in that story. But that was, I think, before you were a dad. And here you are in
Yeah,
Blue Bayou, and you were a dad by
yeah.
that time, right? By the time that Blue Bayou came along. So
Yeah.
I wonder, as a father of a biracial daughter, did you show up differently for Blue Bayou than you did for Gook? You know, were you softer? Because I just felt that that relationship with Jesse was so tender on so many levels, way more tender than Gook. But it's a different story too, right? But I
Yeah.
just wonder if you showed up differently because of the life transitions you've made.
Of course, it's undeniable. When I was writing this film, I took a second before I wrote it. I did a lot of research, I was talking to a lot of people, but when I put pen to paper, my wife was pregnant. So throughout the writing process and after my daughter was born, I was still writing. I had so much time to be introspective and, kind of think about what my role as a father would be, and thinking about this story, what it would feel like to have to give up I didn't want to have to even think about those things because it's kind of like traumatic, but ultimately, it was necessary to write this thing. And in terms of the performance of the film, yes, I definitely was different, and I had much more of a sensitivity and an understanding of it, what it means to be a father and to be that sort of figure to a child.
Mhm.
How precious that is and how important it is. So yeah, it was a bit different this time around.
And Sydney was incredible for as young as she is. I did not
Yeah.
feel like she was melodramatic, but man, she has a really good scream. She's really good at crying and she's really good at screaming. How did you pull the best out of her?
Rehearsals. I do quite a bit of rehearsal. We rehearsed for a few weeks, and then I also went to her home in Atlanta and spent a lot of time with her and her family.
Mm,
Um, so and during the rehearsals, I never made her feel like she was failing. It was always everything was a right choice. But then you slowly start to reel it in and go, hey, what about this? And you give suggestions, make it feel like it's their idea.
mm.
So they have ownership of it and they feel free, but it's actually, you kind of just guided them to where they need to be. Um, I should probably do that with adults too. But yeah, it's a different method of working. And you just need time. You need time. You can't expect them to show up and you go, you know what, step here and then look here, then you're gonna get that kind of a performance.
Is it easier to work with kids because they're such a blank slate?
No, because you need more patience.
Ah,
It's
uh-huh.
it's it's much more, an adult, you can expect them to be a professional and be like, know your lines, show up, have
Mhm,
done your emotional work,
mhm.
do what you're trained to do, but like a kid, like you can't expect that. You'd be crazy. She was 6 when she filmed it. I'd be crazy to think that like I expect anything from her. She's 6.
Mhm,
When
mm.
I was 6, I was an idiot. Like I couldn't do anything.
but she really truly had a level of maturity about her, just
Oh
very,
yeah,
there's a nonchalantness about her, when she's looking at
yeah,
you, like it's really, really amazing and so natural. I
yeah.
wanted to also mention, like, it's so interesting that you wrote your character as a tattoo artist, considering you have so many tattoos. And I was wondering if you wrote this if you meant to write this for yourself, and also what is your connection to, like, why tattoo artist?
I did not write this for myself. It would be too daunting of a task and thought that I was going to write this and had to perform it.
Right.
I always meant to hire somebody, but I met with some actors, and the big thing about it was what I was quickly realized is that after the film wrapped, it'd be very hard to ask of these actors to stay on and continue talking about this issue. I'm not a politician. I don't know much about politics, but as this film, if it does what I hope it can do, my job is to have made a human story that builds empathy and sort of exposure to this issue. Then I hand it off to the people who are experts at this and know how to do legislation and all that. But
So
then, I can
you
still,
want to impact policy. You want to
of
change
course,
policy.
otherwise, why make this film?
Well, I mean, but that's a real big statement. Not all filmmakers want to
Oh,
impact
then
policy.
why make it like go for it? Go for gold. I mean, the reason I made this is my heart bled for these adoptees. But if they need me to go talk on the emotional level or storytelling level or what or how it's affected me or my personal experience while making this film, I can go do that. But I can't ask an actor 2 years later to do that. It's the reason I partnered with Focus because they made another movie called Boy Erased about gay conversion camps, and they're still helping with policy, with policy 2 years later. But at the end of the day, I knew I could take responsibility for that.
I was going to ask if you could.
And
Right. Okay. Thank you.
yeah, and and in terms of the tattoo artist of it all, like it's an art form that's in the fringes, but it's so accepted now. But for some people, it's still like taboo.
Mhm.
But it's an art that is tactile with your hands, and it's also very intimate. um but you don't have to be too attached. Once you're done with the client, they leave. It's the reason I chose that, and it fits in with all of his friends and his lifestyle. I actually I had a tattoo I had when I was 18 that I wanted to cover up. So for this film, I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna just get a tattoo that Antonio would get. And I got an American traditional tattoo across my chest, and I just got the outline, and I didn't get it finished. So what you're seeing is my real tattoo on my chest.
Oh my God. And you did that just
It's
for the movie?
for the movie. I also got this A plus J forever.
I saw
Uh,
that.
you
I
know,
saw that. I wasn't
Antonio plus yeah.
plus
My
just
wife
that.
tattooed this in our hotel bathroom 2 days before I started shooting.
Oh my God. Wow. And you're okay
It's
with having this for the rest of your life, you know?
I'm gonna die. Who cares? We're all gonna die. It's like I'm 40 now. Like, who cares? Like, nobody's looking at me. I'm not trying to like hook up with some like. Who cares?
No, but it's you know what? You've gained a lot of wisdom over the last couple of decades, because you're
Oh,
absolutely.
Leanne, I'm still that punk ass bitch that you first talked to. I'm still that punk ass bitch that you emailed, and I was like, thought I was hot shit. I'm still that dude. I just am more considerate, and I have purpose in life, and there's a reason why I'm making art now. Before I was just trying to be an actor. But I mean, go for it. And that's my philosophy. Is like, if I'm not going to go all in on everything I do, why do it? This life is too short. It's the reason why my output has been so crazy. Is we have too many stories to tell, not enough time.
Yeah, I do feel that sense of urgency from you. And I know that you're continuing to work on other things, and you've put your neck out there to take some risks. So one of the things I heard in a previous interview, in addition to pushing the policies about immigration and adoptees, is that you took a lot of physical risks, both physically, like tattooing yourself, but also like some serious physical risks in the movie that you probably couldn't have asked from other actors, right? So
Exactly.
can you talk about some of those risks that you took? I mean, the motorcycle work, that was all you, right?
Yeah. Um, I also gained 35 pounds for the role
I
that
saw
I
you were a
just
little you were, soft around the edges there.
because it's a type of diet, and I just felt like I just a skinny boy, skinny Asian boy. I just don't feel like match visually with where I was at, with the type of people I was hanging out with. And it took me 2 years to get it. I just like literally in the past month am like almost where I started. But it really messed up a lot of parts. Like it messed a lot of things up because I'm not young anymore. I rode the motorcycle because it just adds to the authenticity and realism of it all. And I did some pretty scary stuff that was pretty dangerous. But again, all in. Let's go. You know, um, let's go. I wanted to feel. I wanted. It's cinema, man. I want it to feel real. I don't want it to feel like a trick. You
Mhm.
know.
Tell me what you were thinking about. Like, I loved, how you brought in the Vietnamese family. I love the papa. I love daddy and his just
Hmm.
gaze at you and just, that line where she says, "He's happy because 'cause I'm happy." Um,
Yeah.
what was going through your mind as the character when your wife was up on stage singing? And, there was that cushion,
Yeah.
you know, and I
Yeah.
just felt like I can see the bubbles on your head, but I'm curious as the character, what was going through your mind?
Well, I think that that song was, like I wanted that song in the film very early on the script writing phase, because if you listen to the lyrics, it's just haunting.
Yes.
It
Mhm.
really represents everything, this family, the hardships that they're going through, and in this moment that they all are pretending to be happy and pretending that everything is okay. The reality is they all know that the tough road is ahead, and that things probably won't be okay. So the wife is singing a song to Antonio. Kathy's singing the song to Antonio, and it's just like a sort of acknowledgement to one another that, like, man, at least it's been good till now. At least it's been, but in terms of what he's thinking, that's up to the audience to project on. That's the beauty of film, is they should decide what Antonio's thinking, because that's why he's not saying anything.
I see. Do you have a favorite scene in the movie?
I would say that's one of my favorite scenes,
Mhm. And
because
by the way,
it's
Alicia is an
just,
amazing singer. I like
yeah.
my mouth dropped when she started singing. Wow, she was
Oh,
amazing.
she's incredible.
Yeah.
She's incredible, yeah, I love that scene. I love the Bayou scene with Jesse. I love the scene where his motorcycle goes into the water and that he meets his mother. It's a dream sequence. Um, I love the ending. I love the film. I love the whole film. It's so emotional for me. I still cry every time I watch it.
Mm. Is there anything that you shot that didn't make it to the final cut?
Oh, so much beautiful stuff. So much beautiful stuff. There's a scene where Parker is contemplating suicide. She's
Mhm.
sitting on this bridge at this overpass. And while we were filming, by chance, New Orleans had fireworks going off in the city for some reason.
Oh.
Nobody knew why. And she was crying, and it was the most beautiful scene I've ever shot in my life. I was looking at the producer being like, is this real? But for the pacing and the focus of the film, I had to cut it. There was another beautiful scene with uh, uh, Ace and Kathy. Kathy goes to Ace's apartment. You kind of see where he lives, and you just see he's human. And she says, I'll give you Jesse.
Mm.
I'll give you Jesse. And there's this sort of beautiful scene between the two. I think it's an Oscar winning scene, but I had to cut it again because of pacing and focus. But also I think it would let people off the hook. It would make it seem like, of course, if Ace is around, then everything's okay.
Mhm.
If Antonio leaves and Ace is there, then everything's okay. But man, I hated cutting that scene. That scene was so beautiful.
Hmm. I also wondered, is there going to be a part two? Because a lot of people who saw the movie with me, they're like, I wonder if he made it in Korea. I wonder what happened to all those other deportees. Did they make
Yeah,
it?
yeah. This is what I can say about that is, I've actually gotten this quite a bit. You gonna can you make part two? Or are you gonna make part two? This can have a sequel. It's meant to feel that way, but it's never meant to be have a sequel, because the whole point is for you to consider these characters one more time. You can't. This whole point is for these characters to live on with you, so you consider them, you lay in bed and you think about them one more time. That's my, what, on all my films, it's my goal is for you to consider. It's my goal for us bringing compassion, understanding, and empathy towards Asian Americans. Is you look at these Asian Americans and you kind of wonder where their lives go, because then we're in their minds. We're in all these people's minds that are even outside of our community. We should not ruin it by making a sequel. Like, this is a tool that we need for policy change, because people need to not forget about these people and consider these people. We can't let them off the hook.
But isn't it also the ultimate compliment that people have so much care and concern for these characters that they want them to succeed, or
It's
they
a huge compliment.
they just want to
Yeah.
know. I mean, this is not a true story. I mean, it's a narrative, right? So they're so connected to Antonio. Oh, what's going to happen to him when he lands in
Yeah.
Korea? How is he going to learn the language? Blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
anyhow,
No, it's a true compliment. And it's very flattering, but we need to keep our eye on the prize.
yeah, yeah. One last question about your cast. So I understand that both Lin Dan and Alicia are not American. They're not from the US.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
you brought in international women to play Americans in this film, and that you did this very intentionally. So can you talk about that intention?
So I usually mix a lot of non-actors with actors, and Merc, who plays the ICE agent, he's actually, I found him at a GNC supplement store.
Oh my God,
He's
I could
from,
totally see him working there too. That's
yeah,
so perfect.
he's like he's a real dude, and Ace B, the guy who's half black, half Asian, uh, to play Q, he's from the hood in New Orleans, and he's he doesn't even know what kind of Asian he is, because his dad was Asian, never met his dad.
Mm.
He can, considers himself black. And all the other characters are all local. But for some of these roles, I thought it'd be very inspired and interesting if Lindan, who's French, Alicia, who's Swedish, they look at America from an outsider's point of view. So if they're playing these strong American women, the choices that they make of what they want to accentuate about an American woman is a choice, and it's intentional. And
Mhm.
that to me is beautiful, because they have the intention and choice of what they want to say with those characters, rather than taking it for granted. Oh, I grew up in the South, I know what it's like to be a Southern belle. Like, yeah, but you know what, you're not going to analyze it like a foreigner would.
Mm. And they did such a great job, because I didn't feel I was very, very surprised. And Lynn being
Yeah.
French really makes sense, her being in New Orleans. It
New
just
Orleans, yeah.
kind of
Yeah, that
fit
was a big
in some way
consideration.
culturally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
well, I want to also ask you your next project, because you said that there's a sense of urgency because we have so many stories to tell. So your next
Yeah.
project is not necessarily a Korean American project, other than you're directing and writing it. But can you tell us about your next project?
So I directed the adaptation of Pachinko, the book Pachinko.
Oh, yes.
um so I did half of that season, half of the first season, and that's coming out at the end of the year. And then I just finished filming another film 2 days ago, about an Indonesian father and son, and this Indonesian rapper named Rich Brian is playing the son, and it's about a kid who's just about to blow up in the music industry. His dad was his manager his whole life. He fires his dad and hires a white manager and label, and essentially the film is about a breakup story between father and son.
So interesting. When
Hmm.
are we gonna be able to see that? When do you think that's gonna come out?
We'll aim for some film festivals in this coming year, and we'll see. I'm hoping around this time next year.
Are you now in a special filmmakers club now that you world premiered at the con? I mean, that's a huge honor. I mean, it's
Yeah,
impossible, right? I
it's
mean, for most people, it's just impossible as an American filmmaker to get into that festival, and yet you got in and you got a standing ovation for your movie. So, does that mean you will have that'll be easier for you to direct future projects?
I don't know. It's impossible because it's a French film festival and they only invite maybe 3 or 4 American films a year. So like I'm incredibly blessed and lucky to have been a part of that family. and welcomed into that sort of crew. Um, I don't know. It just makes me more international. I don't think it's made it easier to get financing. What will help is how well Blue Bayou does because it's more within the system.
Mhm.
Is not as independent. But I don't know. I'll make films on an iPhone. I don't care. I'll
Oh,
just keep doing what I do and making films that bring empathy towards us, and that's what matters, I think. And I make just enough. I make enough money to be okay, and we'll see where the road takes me. I don't know.
I appreciate that about you, Justin, because some people do this work because it's fun and they're good at it, but you just expressed that you do this work for a lot more than that. And with Blue Bayou, ultimately, what does success? I mean, I feel like Blue Bayou is already a success, or do you feel like you're still waiting for that success for the movie based on numbers? You know?
The success of the movie is if it does change that legislation, if
Ah,
it does pass that Child Citizenship Act of 2021.
mhm.
There's a new bill that they're trying to pass, push through. Because there's a Child Citizenship Act of 2000, which grants citizenship for anyone who's adopted after 2000. It's not retroactive. That's the issue we're dealing with at hand. So the success of this is if it changes people's lives, like in a real way.
Well, thank you.
Who cares about box office? I mean, that's
Well, the box office connected to allowing more people to see it, right? Because they're going to put more
yes, of
marketing
course.
and they're going to open it
Yeah.
up in more theaters across the nation. So there is a connection because you want as many people, like you said, the white people in Oklahoma to see it, right? And
Absolutely, absolutely. No,
right.
it does matter in that sense tremendously. But in my life, in my personal life, in terms of victory and success, it's if it can help people. Because I'm a dad, I gotta stand for something.
I
My kid has
know.
to watch. My kid has to watch me. While she grows up and be like, oh shit, my dad was cool. My dad was a good person. Was cool. Not some piece of shit like I was. That bitch ass that I was.
Aw, you would never
Just
say
getting drunk at the San Diego Asian Film Festival. You know what I'm saying? You know,
that. Hey,
showing up to the podium all drunk with Aaron Yu. I can't be that person no more.
I'm gonna have to pull out those pictures. But that's what you're supposed to do when you come down here. It's supposed to get drunk, have fun. Why not? That's not being bitch ass. That's just like throwing down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, I had a good time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. There are so many people here in San Diego that are so inspired by you. I personally am so inspired by your commitment to the art, and not just the art, but how the art impacts the community. And that's what I stand for in my life. So, Justin, just thank you and keep doing what you do.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a pleasure.